Kayla Phillips. Thanks for joining us. Love your
My
work.
pleasure, Anton. Good meeting you too.
Absolutely. What a background. 3 countries.
It
That's
is.
amazing.
It's been a good 25 years exploring, traveling, but at the same time doing what I'm passionate about as well, which is education and learning. It's been a good
Edu-
ride so far.
and I'm guessing education and learning is different in every country, Kayla. Am I right in saying that?
It is. Probably it was 20 years ago, not anymore. I'll talk
Right.
about a bit of globalization of education and the revolution it's going through at the moment later on as well. But
Yeah, cool.
it's slowly merging into one world.
A globalisation of education. Wow. I've never heard that term before. That I cannot wait till we get to that part of the podcast. Thank you for sharing. I've got a sort of a bit of a I love training. We don't have an RTO. We do non-accredited training, which is cool. And my lovely wife was a teacher. She was a teacher for many years. So being close to the education system, I guess, for many years now. So thank you for sharing. And I'll try to stick to the script, Kayla. Sometimes I'm good at that, sometimes I'm not. But it will value the preparation that you've done. So thank you for that. So from your early career through to BSI Learning, through periods of growth and changes in the RTO sector, what sort of influenced your leadership journey up until now, and I guess what does influence it still to this day?
I think my journey with BSI Learning started about 13 years ago. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
it was only my second job since I moved to Australia back in 2004. So, back in 2013, I started here at this company as just the national account manager and with a team of 20 people. Today, we're a strong 110 with a very diverse workforce and across Australia and also transnationally or internationally in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. So it's been a real roller coaster ride. And I probably look over the last 13 years, we've been through regulatory changes, we've been through COVID, we've been through re registrations every 5 years. So acquisitions and mergers. And for me, the main focus was on our vision, which is the positive impact of education on the lives of our learners and how we continuously developed learning solutions that kept up with our learners, with the times, built on emerging and new skills, on future jobs, and all about upskilling and reskilling workforces for our clients. So the entire disruption, as we call it, over the last 13 years hasn't taken away, um, you know, the culture of innovation that we have within this organization. And I've been quite privileged to lead a team of very high performing individuals, all with the same passion of learning, education, training. And our team of trainers do this all day, every day because they love what they do as well. It was really important for me to, yes, we do have a very high regulatory compliance mindset within the organization because it's all about upholding quality and, securing Australia's global education credibility as well, because the Australian education scene is in the top four of the world as well.
Is it really?
So resilience, a culture of innovation, and adapting and changing and flexing with these times, your leadership style changes as well. So it's really important not to look at one style of leadership because different stages of the company need, different strengths in you to kind of motivate and guide your people. It can range from making tough decisions to being more empowering and visionary to sometimes getting hands on with the team. So I'm just very, very flexible in the way I lead within this organization.
Thanks for sharing. What a beautiful answer. What is the vision? You started off that answer with vision, but what's the vision for BSI Learning?
So, changing lives through learning is our vision, and we've got a very massive goal where we say we want to change 1 million lives through learning. And that kind of flows into our strategy. When we talk about 1 million lives or 1 million learners, that's huge for us. So we look at how do we touch those 1 million lives? Where do we get those 1 million learners from? And how are we doing it in a very purposeful way? And that's probably what planted the seed for our expansion and our growth and for winning very bespoke projects, which I'll cover a little bit about later as well. Incarcerated students, things like tropical biosecurity for Australia's indigenous ranges, and a wide range of other programs which are very niche in the market.
Wow. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I don't know if I've heard a vision that big recently, changing lives through learning and impacting 1 million lives. Wow. I wanted to just ask very quickly, one of the things that helps organisations stand out is, being distinctive, having a UVP or a unique value proposition, but having a differentiator. What is it? What makes BSI distinctive?
So I would say we're a learning organization that does everything learning, from
Ah,
non-accredited corporate programs that are just-in-time learning programs for our clients that just require sales or customer service. 26 different nationally accredited qualifications, and they range across 30 different industries, all the way from leadership to supply chain to language literacy, numeracy, HR, cybersecurity, AI, data. So it's quite a diverse offering. And then we also develop digital solutions for clients. So some of our large clients, the big four banks, where they require very bespoke, contextualized learning for retail banking or for
mm,
domestic violence or for cyber
wow.
awareness. These are all bespoke solutions. So our ability to curate learning for any audience and also be able to map it back to nationally accredited learning where the need is something we're quite different from some of the other providers out there.
Mm,
Our
mm,
learning interventions start from high school for high school students where they want to explore that at the beginning of their career, all the way to mature age workers that are looking for reskilling, upskilling, changing careers, or re entry into the workforce. We also have learners with disabilities where they're trying to normalize into working lives, working with employers that only employ workers with disabilities as well.
hmm
It's
Oh,
to give them the opportunity to formally get a qualification whilst they're working in those environments too. So, quite a large range of programs and covering a very diverse cohort of learners.
wow. Huge, diverse, digital, curated learning. I like that. And specialised learning, bespoke. And we do learn. We start learning. We probably learn more in the first 5 years of our life than we do for the rest of our life put together. So some psychologists and some research tells us. Um, but I love that where you've got lifelong learners. And like I'm in my 50s and I've just finished a grad cert in research, would you believe? And I want to learn from other people. What does, as a RTO and as a learning institution, what does the word influence sort of bring up for you, Kayla? How do you influence learners or even your team?
For me, I mean, as a CEO, I believe leadership is about influence, and influence is about communication. Um, I do remember my, coach from many years ago telling me if you're everyone can communicate, but very few can actually communicate to influence. And that's the crux of my whole development. How do you, as a visionary or a leader of an organization, guide others through inspiration, through trust, through respect, rather than authority or control? So I focus a lot on strong relationships, leading by example, and I'm a lifelong learner myself. So developing my
Of course.
skills continuously, is a good role model for the others to do the same. Especially in our industry, we're all lifelong learners, like you said. And influential leaders are lifelong learners, by the way. So I love collaborating. I love seeking feedback. Helps me take on challenges, and very open to perspectives. And I think it's really important for us when we are given the responsibility of strategically growing our organization, that you're open to different perspectives as well, and you are communicating that vision, which may not be the same as it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and you've got to communicate that effectively, inspiring your teams and everyone working towards the same future. So that's really important for us, and especially in the education industry where things change, goals can change. You've got to be very agile. And how do you take that team on your journey? It's only through good influence.
Nice. Leadership equals influence equals communication. I love that. Succinct. Everyone communicates, but how many leaders do it effectively in a way that shares the vision and inspires, inspire to breathe into? Kayla, is where
Yes,
that inspiration
perfect.
comes from. Yeah. So in saying that, so you mentioned someone that you got coached by, and you mentioned, so we do coaching. I'm up to about 1,500 one-on-ones just since COVID. I didn't track them before that. I wish I did. For you, is there one person you look back on your career, Kayla, and you go, you know what? I wouldn't be here without that particular human. Who's had the biggest influence on you?
Um, I don't have one person per se, Anton. I probably will say I've had different influences or role models at different stages of my career. My
Ah,
parents were my first
of
influences,
course.
and
Hmm.
till I was around 18, dad was, owned a family business. Mum was a teacher. So I had this whole entrepreneurship and lifelong learning as my framework growing up as well. So, and you can see where it's led me today. But they've pushed me to become school captain, play for the state hockey team, sports at the same time, and that's kind of built by mental framework as well, to be resilient, to be a go-getter, to be aspirational. Some of these qualities are from my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I would say when I was growing up and I moved to Dubai, there were two very, legendary people, Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi. And I still have their quotes up on my wall at home. And two quotes. One was "Education changes lives" by Nelson Mandela, and Mahatma Gandhi's quote, which says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And you can see how, something that drew me to BSI Learning was about changing lives through education. So it was a real influencing piece for why I chose my career. And it started off as a high school teacher before I moved to Australia. So it grounded
Wow.
me really well in my ability to think about education. And here on my leadership journey, I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek.
Of course.
Listen to him, read his books, just it's a motivational piece every morning. And his concept of ikigai, which is bring your passion, make it your profession, becomes vocation. It's the golden
Mm.
circles. So I believe huge in that. And I follow Indra Nooyi, the former PepsiCo CEO, as well, read her books
Wow.
when she comes to Australia, which she hardly does. I do go and watch her. So her journey as a migrant in the US and how she forged her corporate career almost gives me a bit of an inspiration, is because my story is along the same lines as well.
Whoa. That's a great answer. From Mahatma to Mandela to Simon Sinek to other influential CEOs. That's powerful. And back to mum and dad, of course. Go mum and dad. I
Yes, it always
I grew up
starts at the foundation years, though.
right, and I'm married to a teacher, as I said, and I get the gift of feedback, Kayla. And I say, me and Toby are going out. Toby and I say, okay, thank you, Mrs. G.
It's
And then
important.
I crack. It is. Your language and your grammar is very important.
Yeah.
And sometimes Kayla, my wife, thinks this isn't funny, and I go, "Oh, are you going with Toby too?" But anyway, hey, education, workplace culture. And our big deal is to upgrade, upskill, and uplift. And we want leaders to develop a strong, psychologically safe mindset, develop psychologically safe and high performing teams. I love the fact that you mentioned high performing before. You started in 2003, we started in 2004, 5, which is 20 years and 21 years now. And I'd love to get your perspective on culture. And it looks like you've written a fair bit about the benefits of internationalizing education. Can you just take us through that a bit, that globalization? I'm really intrigued by that.
So if you've had a look at the recent World Economic Forum reports, you'll see that Australia is ahead of other countries and other continents in terms of its education and its frameworks, its quality, and its QS rankings. You know, three of our universities are in the top 50. And that's really important to be proud of and understand. And the rest of the world's kind of looking at us. There are two main aspects. One is developing countries, in Southeast Asia and South Asia, they want to be developed countries by the time we get to 2045, 2047. Indonesia, Vietnam, India. So
Oh,
it's really important for Australia to be taking the lead in making sure we're helping them get to where they want to be, in by their 100th independence, or by 2047. And it's a whole raft of things, looking at our frameworks and trying to embed our frameworks and the way we develop competency based education. And that's the whole reason why BSI Learning is an education delegate on the Austrade missions that
wow.
go to India, that go to Vietnam and Indonesia. And you'll see these are very aspirational goals with these countries, getting to zero emissions or being really good with their technology and cybersecurity and
Oh,
AI
okay,
implementation,
cool.
and also building their own infrastructure and getting their
Mm,
workforce to a level and a quality that exists in Australia.
well,
And all that's with education, building the future talent that's
mm,
going to serve these countries. So you'll see that access to Australian education is becoming easy because
right.
a lot of Australian education providers are going to in country models, which is the next wave of international education.
Oh,
And it's about access, it's about equity, but it's also helping our neighbors in the Indo Pacific region to build their capabilities so that we are a developed region as well, along with Australia. So, all the barriers people previously faced, cost of the getting foreign education or international education, that goes away. So you
wow.
have the middle class income earners who always aspire to go abroad and study, but never have the money to do so, now getting access to education that Australia gives them. So we've played a big part. It's termed as transnational education, and this is where I say this whole next era of education has profound implications on how education is delivered across the globe. It's globalization or internationalization of education.
Foundation. Yeah.
And countries are opening up to concepts where they're allowing, countries like the Australia,
Mm-hmm.
UK, US to go and set up campuses and go and set up branches where
Wow.
they're giving their people access to what they would never dreamt of before or they thought was impossible. And that's a really important aspect of what I say. Education is global now. No one country can survive on its own, and it's all about cultural exchange. It's all about knowledge exchange. And it's all about feeding off resources in which one country has a lot of and the other needs for its own development. So, very
Wow.
collaborative world it's turning out to be in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, the things that I wrote down there was We got 3 of the top unis in the world, and we're sharing that with the planet. We're going out and setting up and giving people access to our education system because it's so well developed. And all of these other countries will get this cultural exchange of education. And you're leading the charge on that at BSI, being a delegate on forums. Wow. Congrats. Go
Thank
BSI.
you.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
And go to our, and a shout out to our uni system too. I've studied at probably 3 or 4 of good unis.
definitely. Yes.
Wow.
And
Congrats.
it's wonderful how in this country university education and vocational education harmonize really well because there
Ah,
is no stigma around someone pursuing vocational education
ah,
for their own journey versus a university education. And somewhere
yeah,
along the line, the two worlds merge, the two worlds can blend. So
absolutely.
we're really lucky to have a really good system in our country
Nice.
like that.
Nice, yeah. And as a tradesperson originally, would you believe, as an electrician, I did some vocational training for 4 years back, a long, long time ago, before I nearly got killed at work. And so I jumped out of the trade. Now I do this work instead. Um, Talking about education, one of the things that I did study post trade was psychology. And if I turn my camera around, there's probably some evidence of, I guess, the years that were dedicated to study, and psych was one of those. And when you put the physical safety experience that I have with the psychological safety now that we've got, uh, psych safety is a big deal, Kayla. And I think I'd love your take on that because psych safety is now legal, and you've got all these educators out there. You've got 110 humans in your business. How do you keep them psychologically safe? What do you do? What's the skill,
So
please?
for us, it is really important to create and maintain a very healthy and productive environment as a learning
Mm,
organization. Our trainers and people work with diverse cohorts, and some of them can be challenging cohorts as
of
well.
course. Yeah,
And
I get that.
especially the segment of trainers that work in correctional centers, delivering, language literacy and numeracy programs. And it's the state priority to reduce recidivism in Queensland and New South Wales. So we're the largest provider of inmate education in Australia.
Wow.
And those require really good support systems for our people where they can do their best when they're out there representing us, facilitating all day, every day, managing their back office, working with the, clients that, either have cohorts with learners that have learning difficulties and
Mm,
how do we
mm,
reasonably adjust our assessing methodologies, etc. So we very good with our professional development programs within
nice.
BSI Learning. So
Hmm.
it is mandatory for us every 6 to 8 weeks to kind of get everyone together and look at how they're building their resilience, how they're managing their stress. We recently introduced mental health first aid. In fact, our chief learning officer is a psychologist who writes a lot of our training programs based on psychology. So it's important for us to take them
Mm,
through.
mm,
How do they cope? How do they recover? But also, how do we
mm.
create a psychologically safe environment at work? Our values include trust, respect, adventurous, and team first. So if we actually implement those values into the workplace, it speaks to a culture where we encourage people to speak up with ideas, with questions, with concerns, with mistakes, and there's no fear of failure. So that's encouraging open and honest communication. There's no slap on the wrist if you made a mistake, and we'll fix it. And that's a learning journey in itself because the next time you don't have to do it. And the trainers are trained and skilled to promote the same concept in their classrooms as well, because we will have a range of learners in classrooms where learning styles vary, the way people learn vary, and it's to be inclusive in the way we design our learning tools, the way we deliver adult training. So all this comes into, in a way, building a psychologically safe environment in every aspect of the organization.
Wow.
And recently, if you've heard about the whole AI paradox Australia's living in, we don't
Mm,
have a national law that says
mm,
how you use AI, where you use AI. So,
mm,
privacy rules are being tightened. You have government agencies publishing statements about how you use AI. Procurement and risk policies are getting updated, automation, and all that stuff. And psychological safety will have a huge part to play in this whole, AI revolution we're talking about.
thanks for sharing it. And you're not the first person on this interview series to call that out either, Kayla, because we've already been asked to do leadership training around the AI impact on leaders and how they lead the charge moving forward, and more specifically about how they emotionalize or humanize the AI information. Because AI will give you a very vanilla, and it might not be the right thing for
Yeah.
your organisation or for humans. So I love that. I love that you brought that up, I've never heard it called the AI paradox yet. And I get that paradox. You've got this AI, but you've also got humans over here, and there's this very different aspects to that. Wow. How are you handling it internally at BSI? Have you got a process, a procedure? Like what are you doing?
Yeah, we've got two aspects, and one is our own workforce and how where we can incorporate AI very safely, um, in trying of kind of developing programs or automating some of the processes we have internally, but doing so in a manner that it's very guarded and safely adopted, and at the same time developing AI courses and content where we can deliver them to clients to upskill their own workforce. Um, One is understand what it is, speak very confidently to use it, but also
Mhm.
where to use it and when to use it. So that's
Mm,
probably the aspect where we become education providers. And
mm,
obviously, Australia is looking at its whole national capability as well,
of
in terms
course.
of technology and integrating that into
Mm,
programs and qualifications. So there's quite a few
mm.
aspects of AI we're involved in.
Watch this space is what I would say,
Yes,
Kat.
watch the space.
Culture comes before performance. Absolutely right. What's your take on organisational culture? And I'm going to just go off script slightly and just say versus climate. So culture and climate, very different things. Culture is a bit more long term, whereas climate sort of changes a little bit. How would you describe, and I love it, you said trust, respect, teamwork, and you're
Adventurous.
adventurous. I like that. How do those, I guess, values shape your culture, and how would you describe your culture at BSI?
So we've got mandatory KPIs on
Oh,
values. So the way we
oh,
measure performance at BSI Learning is not just by financial targets or
oh,
sales targets or other aspects of KPIs for non-sales staff and executive leaders, but
wow.
we also have our five values, which is trust, respect, energetic, adventurous, and team first. So when we do our reviews and we have conversations with managers and then flowing into teams, we look at how they demonstrated those values over the last quarter or over the 6 months, and literally grading people between 5 stars, right? And that's really important for us because it shapes organization culture. What are instances that someone has displayed trust or respect, and what are the new risk-taking projects someone has looked at because they were adventurous, and that whole fear of failure that we spoke about, it encourages innovation, and it's one of
Mm,
those things where each of our values are tied to behaviors that we encourage within the organization. And everyone sings from the same hymn book, so to speak. It's the language we use, it's how we hold each other accountable when we don't display those behaviors that go against our values. So little things make a big impact on us. Some of the other things are our reward and recognition programs,
no,
celebrating work anniversaries, celebrating birthdays in the workplace. And we
Nice.
got a lot of social causes we support. We're currently doing September, and it's fun because the whole company is divided into teams, and we're competing with each other to raise money for cerebral palsy. So we do a lot of those social initiatives, and we embed a very lifelong learning culture within the organization. Staff get to go on, do their qualifications, upgrade their credentials with us as well, and they kind of get this lifelong learning opportunity, which is something we aspire to do for our own people. And the executive team is big on leadership because my team of executives, we're doing 360s to know what people think of the way we're leading, where we need to improve ourselves, if we're adapting our leadership style to make sure that our teams are inspired, are motivated, and have a wonderful relationship with the executives to realize our vision. So a little bit of incremental little things as well as some big strategic initiatives. And we're not a large organization. We're just, less than 110 people. So we take little steps that have massive impact on our culture.
Little steps, massive impact. It's funny you should mention that, Kayla, because when I think about high performing teams, I always think about the outputs. What do we do? So you deliver training and you deliver it in the jails and prisons and other places and internationally. Then how do you do it? So the relationship piece. And I always say we can metric or KPI the outputs, very easy to measure. When you talk about how clearly you can measure relationships or how we do what we do, which is really culture, you measure culture regularly, and you mentioned some tools like 360, really powerful. You also measure behaviours aligned with values. That's quite progressive. Like not many organisations would be able to say that. And we've worked with 200 of them over the last 20 years. I really would probably not know too many that would answer that question as powerfully and as concisely and as humanly focused as that we measure how we do things.
That's
That's
pleasing to
really
know, Anton.
that's
We're on
yeah.
the right track, is what I gather from that.
Oh, give yourself a no. Seriously, Kayla. Yeah. I regularly say that it's really hard to measure and ask organisations whether they do, and not many do. And my favourite topic, other than psych safety, Kayla, is emotional intelligence. I love that topic. I've already asked our business manager this morning how she was out of 10 this morning, and I nearly asked her with the emotion wheel, how do you feel? Talk, what's your emotional state today? Which I do with every coaching client when they come in. EQ. What's
Yeah,
your take on it?
we've implemented EQ as one of the core competencies, not only for staff, but also in the programs we deliver to clients and leadership programs we design as well. So it's amazing how much content we've designed and developed and educated clients and their leaders about how important EQ is. But we run, at least annually, kind of a refresher on concepts of EI and EQ. And there are a lot of frameworks we do, but the one we, normally follow is Daniel Goleman and his framework, which is very simple to use, and based on building your self awareness and then the self regulation piece. So,
Mm.
a huge promoter of bringing yourself to work, but I think it's also giving people the ability to learn coping mechanisms as well, and especially for our managers, because EQ is really important for our managers to be
Mm.
able to be good managers and be good leaders and grow into emerging leaders as well during their succession plan. So the self-regulation bit is something we hone in on and teach them skills on, how to use some of those tools and be self-aware when you realize that, today is just a day of listening to someone who has to vent. And then what you do after that can be another, meeting with that person. Very very simple, practical steps that actually help them build their EQ.
Beautiful. And that's the most common question we get to using the Daniel Goleman model is, how do I regulate? When I'm triggered, like, how do I,
Yes, exactly.
keep it together instead of saying what I really feel? And breathe, pause, and refocus.
Yeah,
Breathe.
yeah. Breathe, drink a cup of water, take a walk,
That's right.
come back and
That's it.
say you'll talk to that person later. So understanding your triggers is equally important as well. But yes, self-regulation is big.
Beautiful. And then, there's that whole social awareness and regulation. How are other people experiencing us, Kayla? Isn't that an interesting question? What impact are we having on another human through our language or our body language? And have we triggered another human? I say to people, you get triggered, but hold on a second. And this might be news to you. You might be triggering as well.
Yes, yes. Putting yourself in other people's shoes and understanding their perspective is a big one.
That empathy piece, right? Empathy. Love it. Love it, love it. And you talked about, emotionally intelligent leaders. I always say it helps leaders not just be better leaders, be better humans. Just be a good human, we say. I love values-driven leadership, which you've talked about. You've talked about innovation. What I'd love to know, Kayla, and I ask this question about now in these interviews or podcasts, who are you most proud of? What human have you managed to influence? You look back on their career and you go, gee, I'm really proud of where they've ended up. Have you got one person maybe or more than one that you really feel like you did influence?
I wouldn't name people, but I think, I always think about the impact you're having on someone that you haven't met before or seen through your actions. And that is a huge one for me because not very often when you're out there, someone comes up and tells you, "Look, I've been watching what you're doing. I've been following you on LinkedIn," or "I love how, you did that interview or you wrote that article." And these are the unseen people that you have an influence on. And I do get from time to time. I've had, someone who's been following what I did in my education journey over the years and come up to me and say, you know what, only because I saw how you did and how you got here, I wanted to, take up this career similar to you. And I've ended up as, international director of this organization in education. And that is huge for me because when you're around with people and you know your teams, you meet them every day, you know the impact you're making because if you're not, you get to know very soon. But it's the people that you don't see every day that your journey and how you present yourself out there and talk about your story has that impact on people that you've never met before, and that is huge for me. Not a lot of names or one. I don't want to name anyone, obviously, or not one person, but yeah, I do remember two or three over the last 5 years that have walked up to me and said how what I do has kind of had an impact on them and the careers they've chosen.
How good is that?
That is
How
very, very, yeah, it's
gratifying.
humbling, and I think it gets you out of bed every day because that's
Oh,
one other person out there who you've inspired to do more and be more. That's probably job done right there.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You talk about the word impact, and you've used the word inspired a few times today, and I use influence, impact, inspiration, and influence. I think that's just so powerful. Looking ahead, so a little bit of the work that you would have to do, a little bit of the work that we get asked about is what's leadership going to look like into the future? Are we going to have robots?
It is a very interesting topic. So I've currently enrolled into a doctoral program, and I'm deliberately doing it because I just have to keep studying. I can't stop studying. And to do my PhD has been like a lifelong goal of mine. I couldn't do it because once I moved countries and had got married, had my kids, and then it's about them and then my career.
Of
And
course.
I was like, okay, it's probably a good time now to do something that I wanted to do 15 years ago. So I took up a
Wow.
doctorate of education in international business, which I just started maybe 7 months ago. And currently I'm doing a segment on Leadership 2040. So
Right.
it's amazing the things that I've actually learned. And this question is appropriate for the topic as well. And Leadership 2040 teaches you what we're talking about today is leaders must be innovative disruptors. And that word innovative disruptor kind of stuck with me. It's kind of my highlight of the masterclass that I had. And it's a concept from PwC where,
Mm.
you know, they talk about leadership paradoxes. And there are six leadership paradoxes, which I will share with you as well. But what
Please.
is an innovative disruptor? It talks about five key traits. The first one is associating. Now, these leaders are able to use association thinking where they're connecting the unconnected. Now, that can mean a lot of things. It's almost about how you bring, unrelated problems or ideas together and connect them because that's what you require now with the disruption that's happening in the world. That's the first one. The next one is questioning. Always challenge the status quo. How can this be different? Why are we doing it this way?
Hmm.
Can we change it? So, this whole concept of being innovative and constantly thinking about improving,
Mm.
that is
Mm.
really important
Mm.
for leaders of today. Observing. I love watching other CEOs, following other CEOs and what they're up to, other companies in similar field and what they're up to, clients, products, and it is really important to do that. To use your market scan
Mm.
to look at what's new, and that observing and watching the world around you is a key trait. Networking is huge for me, and it's not just meeting people, but testing your new ideas with new people. And it's idea networking. So that is huge because it almost gives you the confidence that the route you're taking or the idea you're about to implement is a good one because you've kind of collaborated and tested if it's great. And the last
Mhm.
one is experimenting. For me, it's equal to visiting new places. You know what, traveling and seeing the world. It's the same in professional life. You're trying out new experiences. You're piloting new ideas, and testing hypotheses. And again, going back to no fear of failure. And the innovative mindset. So the experimenting speaks to that. And that's what I feel out of five, to be honest. The five traits for future leaders.
Amazing. So well articulated. Thank you so much. And
Thanks
I
to
just
my professor who did a great job
go
of
the professor.
taking me through the masterclass too.
And a shout out to the uni you're studying through. Who are you studying through?
I'm doing it with Rushford Business School in Switzerland. And I
Rushford
chose
Business
them
School.
specifically
Cool.
because of their new contemporary ways of,
Nice.
adopting what's the future focus leaders in international business and where that's going. So, yeah,
Congrats.
hats
You
off to them.
talk about internationalizing education. Now you're learning from an international institution. I think, you're living your values really, and, and learning some great stuff at the same time.
Yes, yes, that's
I
important.
didn't quite get finished the PhD. One of those is a grad cert in research. So I got that far, and my lecturers didn't feel that my assignment was worthy of a Masters of Research qualification. So I was very sad about that, Kayla. But that's okay. We got to grad cert in research. So I've done the survey and had that experience. So that was,
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
your experience can always lead you to start a PhD at any age, Anton. So I would encourage you to
yeah,
do that.
one day, Kayla. One day. It's the mission. It was the mission. Like you, for probably 15 years. It's like, as we wrap up, Kayla, two really fast questions. One, do you have a leadership mantra? Have you got the quote? And I'm going to say maybe the two quotes that you've got, or is there another one that sort of you
Um,
love?
I think my leadership mantra is what keep telling myself, and this is very personal. I say, you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's a big thing for me. It talks to work life balance, it talks to you looking after yourself as a leader, because then only then you can look after others. It's about continuously filling that cup with more lifelong learning, more skilling, a bit more agility, learning new ways of
Mm.
leading. And it's something that I always keep telling myself when I'm a bit drained and I don't have the energy. And what gets me out of bed is, a good night's rest. And it's all the simple things. So, yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup. So,
Love
look
it.
after yourself really well so you can look after others.
Self-care, Kayla, self-care. Love it. I've got an app on my phone that tracks my sleep every day. I've got on my watch, I've got my energy, my body battery. So I know exactly where I'm at during the day and I know what to do. So I buy into that.
Yeah, and you got one that also measures your blood oxygen levels now.
Stop it! Help you breathe.
Yes.
Breathe more. And as you know, your brain takes 20% of the oxygen that goes into your body, and you only 2 minutes
Correct.
without oxygen. I
Yeah.
don't know why we don't do it more strategically and in a more structured way during the day. Meditation's good for that, for anyone listening. Very quickly, last question, Kayla. Thank you for being an amazing guest on this interview series. And I hope you don't mind, can I use this as my podcast as well as a podcast episode? That'd be all right,
Please,
yeah?
go ahead. Yes.
And we'll let you know when that comes out. I have some amazing guests on, like you, CEOs. I've had some really powerful sports people. Yesterday we had our ex-minister, local state member in
Mm-hmm.
Gladstone. Who's an amazing human that if you were running a podcast on Find Your Influence, you would recommend talking to or you'd love to talk to? Who would you think I should get on next?
I have my executive. I'm going to be selfish and nominate him, Scott Henderson. So he's a chief learning officer, but he's also a resident psychologist, and he does some amazing work. Not just training, but in terms of his whole life journey and how he's come about to where he is today. But he'll give you nuggets of gold in terms of self development and the work he does out there. If you really need someone. He's very inspirational, and my last 13 years, he's almost been my voice, so to speak. That kind of tells me, oh, you're not doing this great, and keeps me on, in check. So yeah, I would highly recommend him.
Would you mind making that connection, or are you happy for me to reach out on LinkedIn? Is that all right?
Yes.
That would be much appreciated. Love talking to other psychology-based humans. I always say that we study psychology to fix ourselves first, Kayla.
That is
Once we
correct.
fix it, we can
I
help
think
other
that's
humans.
his tagline too. So you both will get along like a husband.
I love it. Kayla, to value your time, you're a busy human and CEO. That's 59.